Imagine you woke up tomorrow with no mouth, exactly 24 hours to live, and an overwhelming urge to throw a massive party in midair. Congratulations, you are a mayfly. I know what you are thinking. You have probably heard the trivia fact that the mayfly is the shortest-lived animal on Earth, a tragic little bug that gets exactly one day to experience the magic of existence before dropping dead. The name itself comes from the Greek words ephemeros, meaning lasting a day, and ptera, meaning wings. But that famous trivia fact is actually a total lie. Mayflies do not live for one day. They can actually live for up to 3 entire years. They just happen to have a one-day job, and it is the worst job in the animal kingdom. To understand why this creature is the ultimate tragic millennial of the insect world, you have to look at how it grows up. For the vast majority of its life, spanning anywhere from a few months to a couple of years, the mayfly lives entirely underwater as an aquatic nymph. A nymph is just the scientific term for an insect toddler. During this long underwater apprenticeship, they are just grinding for experience points. They hide from fish, they eat algae and pond scum, and they just grow. And grow! In fact, some mayfly species will molt their skin up to 50 times during this phase. Molting is when an insect sheds its exoskeleton because it got too fat for it, like bursting out of a tight suit of armor. 50 costume changes just to survive childhood. So they spend years preparing. They bank every single calorie they will ever need while living in the mud. And then, one day, they decide it is time to graduate. The nymph swims to the surface of the water, its back splits open, and out crawls a winged insect. But evolution decided to play a cruel trick here. Because when the mayfly emerges with its brand new wings, it is not actually an adult yet. It is in a bizarre teenager phase called a subimago. They are the only living insects on planet Earth that molt their skin after they already have perfectly functional wings. The mayfly flies to a nearby tree, lands, and then literally peels off an entire second body, including transparent wing covers, just to become its final adult form. Fly fishermen actually call this winged teenager phase a dun, and they call the final adult stage a spinner. It is like putting on a tuxedo, driving to a wedding, and then taking off a full wetsuit in the parking lot before you can walk inside. But once that final wetsuit comes off, the biological clock starts ticking. And I mean a literal countdown timer to death. When the mayfly becomes a fully mature adult, it undergoes some aggressive anatomical downgrades. First, their mouth parts become completely vestigial and non-functional. They cannot eat, they cannot drink, but it gets weirder. Because they no longer need to digest food, their stomach is completely sealed off and filled with air. Nature literally uninstalled their kitchen to make room for a helium balloon. This air sac acts as a buoyancy organ, making them lighter so they can fly with minimal effort. Everything the adult mayfly does from the second forward is powered entirely by the fat it stored when it was a toddler eating mud. There is no refueling. There is no lunch break. Instead of a stomach, the males get some heavily upgraded dating hardware. Male mayflies grow enormous, elongated front legs that look like creepy, grabby claws, which they use to snatch females out of the air. They also grow a second set of giant, upward-facing eyes on stalks, called turbinate eyes, which act like built-in augmented reality goggles, optimized solely to spot the silhouettes of flying females against the sky. And if that was not enough, male mayflies have 2 penises, and the females have 2 separate genital openings. For an animal that does not even have a mouth, it certainly packed a lot of duplicate hardware for its final night out. Because a night out is exactly what is about to happen. In order to maximize their chances of finding a date, mayflies do not just emerge a few at a time. They synchronize. Entire populations of mayflies will emerge from a river or lake at the exact same time, forming massive, dense aerial swarms. The males form towering vertical columns in the air, bobbing up and down in a frantic dance. The females fly into the meat grinder. A male snatches her with his long arms. Copulation happens in free fall and lasts just a few seconds, and then the female immediately drops down to the water surface to release her eggs. The biological strategy here is called predator satiation. This is a fancy academic way of saying that if you and a billion of your siblings all go outside at exactly the same time, the local birds and fish will get so completely stuffed on your brothers and sisters that they physically cannot eat you. It is the Zap Brannigan strategy of throwing bodies at a problem until the problem gets full, and it works flawlessly. The swarms are so unbelievably massive that they literally show up on weather equipment. In the summer of 2014, the National Weather Service office in La Crosse, Wisconsin, publicly posted Doppler radar imagery of a massive green blob moving over the Mississippi River. It looked exactly like a severe rainstorm. It was not rain, it was billions of mayflies. The bugs piled up so deeply on local bridges that they caused car crashes, and the city literally had to bring out winter snowplows in the middle of July to scrape the dead bugs off the asphalt. In Seoul, South Korea, giant mayflies swarm the Han River in such crazy numbers that locals affectionately name them Tinkerbells, and the city actually has to dim its streetlights so people can see out of restaurant windows. It is the most chaotic, fast-paced networking event in the animal kingdom. Most adults survive for maybe 24 to 48 hours before their battery runs out. But for one specific species, the American sand-burrowing mayfly, scientifically known as Dillania americana, the timeline is genuinely terrifying. The adult female of this species holds the world record for the shortest adult lifespan of any insect. She lives for less than 5 minutes. I want you to really process that timeline. She spends up to 2 full years burrowed underwater in the sand. Then, in a narrow 30-minute window right before dawn, she emerges, molts her skin, flies into the dark, finds a mate, drops her eggs into the water, and drops dead, all in the time it takes you to listen to a single pop song. Her ratio of preparation time to actual adult life is roughly 200,000 to 1. But sadly, the tragedy of the mayfly does not end with its ticking clock, because humans have accidentally built the ultimate mayfly trap. You see, after a female mayfly successfully mates, she needs to drop her eggs into a river or a lake so the cycle can start over. To find water from high up in the air, she does not look for the color blue. She looks for horizontally polarized light, which is the specific way that light waves bounce off the flat, reflective surface of water. But in 1998, researchers discovered a fatal flaw in this ancient system. It turns out that dry, dark asphalt roads reflect polarized light even better than real water does. To a mother mayfly, a freshly paved road or a Walmart parking lot looks like the most pristine, perfect river she has ever seen. She dives down, lays thousands of eggs on the dry, baking tarmac, and dies. A flawless survival strategy that worked for over 300 million years, completely hard-countered by the invention of the parking lot. And this modern trap is taking a massive toll. A 2020 study using 2 decades of weather radar archives found that mayfly populations dropped by 52% in the upper Mississippi River, and by a staggering 84% in western Lake Erie between 2012 and 2019. But there is a reason you should root for this weird, mouthless little creature. Mayfly nymphs are wildly sensitive to pollution and low oxygen levels. Because they live underwater for years, breathing through delicate gills, they simply cannot survive in toxic garbage water. In fact, the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency uses mayflies as a core standard to test if our rivers are healthy. They are the government's unpaid underwater health inspectors. Back in the 1950s, a giant species of burrowing mayfly vanished entirely from western Lake Erie because human pollution had choked the oxygen out of the water. But after 40 years of intense environmental cleanup, they miraculously came back in the mid-1990s. So the next time you are driving near a lake in the summer, and you find your windshield suddenly plastered by a swarm of hyperactive bugs with no mouths and giant eyes, do not get grossed out. Be grateful. It means the water you are living next to is clean. And if a creature that spent 2 years in the mud to get a 5-minute unpaid shift with no lunch break can still get the job done, then you can probably survive whatever deadline is stressing you out this week.